My name is Ava Thompson, and I am 35 years old. Before I tell you everything that happened, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from? Canada? The United States? Somewhere else? Wherever you are, thank you for listening because this story still shakes my heart when I think about it. I want to start at the highest peak. The moment everything exploded. The moment my whole family tried to push me into a corner. The moment the truth hit the table like a hammer. It was a cold Thursday night. We were all seated at the dinner table. My mom, my dad, my younger brother Ethan, his fiancée Lily, and me. My father slammed his hand on the table so hard the plates jumped. My mother leaned forward, her face tight with anger. And then they both shouted the words I never imagined I would hear from the people who raised me. "It's your duty to pay for his wedding." Their voices echoed around the dining room. My mom pointed her finger right at my face. "You need to contribute to the family," she yelled. "If you won't, disappear from here forever." Ethan just sat there smiling. Quiet, satisfied smile. Like he had been waiting for this moment. I pushed my chair back slowly and stood up. My heart was beating hard, but my voice came out calm. Too calm even for me. I looked at all of them and said, "You have 12 hours more to leave here." My father's smile disappeared. My mother's eyes widened. Ethan choked on the water he was drinking. No one understood what I meant. But before they could ask, before any of them could speak again, I walked out of the dining room. And the entire house fell into a thick, heavy silence. And this, right here, this moment is where everything changed. Now let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how we even got here. And why my words were not a threat, but a countdown. I grew up in Michigan, in a small town where everyone believed that family should lift each other up. I believed that too with my whole heart. I was that kid who helped everyone. Neighbors, teachers, even strangers. My mom used to say I had the heart of an open door. Anyone could walk in, and I would give them what little I had. My dad called me the soft one, not as a compliment but as a weakness. My brother Ethan was the opposite. He always wanted the easy road. If life were a test, he would be the student who never studied but still expected an A because he thought he deserved it. When we became adults, the difference became even clearer. I worked 3 jobs through college. Cleaning offices at night, waitressing on weekends, tutoring kids in the afternoons. Ethan dropped out twice, then stayed home playing video games until my parents bought him a car to motivate him. When I bought my first small house at 27, after saving every penny, my parents said, "You're doing too much. You don't need your own place yet." When Ethan bought nothing and contributed nothing, they said, "He will figure it out one day." Still, I loved them. Family is family. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself. But as the years passed, something changed inside me. Every time I helped them, they wanted more. Every time I succeeded, they acted like I owed them. Then one day, Ethan announced he was getting married, to a woman he had met 6 months earlier. Her name was Lily, and she was nice enough, but she also came from a family that believed big weddings meant big respect. That was when my parents started looking at me differently. Like I was a wallet, not a daughter. First it was small comments. "We will need help with the wedding. You're the older sister. You should support him. Your job pays well. You can afford it." But then their tone changed. It became demands. It became pressure. It became entitlement. And it all built up to that Thursday night. The night everything burst. Before we get back to the dinner table explosion, let me properly introduce the main people in this story, because who they are matters in a big way. Mom Sandra Thompson. A woman who believes appearances matter more than peace. Dad Robert Thompson. A man who thinks paying bills for a son is investing in the family, but supporting a daughter is spoiling her. My brother Ethan Thompson. 30 years old. Charming when he wants to be. Lazy when no one is watching. His fiancée Lily Carter. Sweet, polite but quiet. And she has no idea what she is marrying into. And then there's me, Eva. The one who works. The one who sacrifices. The one they think will always say yes. But on that Thursday night, I didn't say yes. I said the one sentence that froze every face at that table. Now let's return to what happened right before that sentence. Ethan had been smiling since we sat down. The kind of smile that says, "Everything is going exactly how I planned." My parents passed around plates of food like it was a normal dinner. But I could feel something building in the room. Something thick. Something sour. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat. "So," he said loudly, "we have decided that your brother's wedding will be next month. And since you make the most money in the family, you will cover the expenses." I stopped chewing. My mom didn't wait a second before adding, "It's your responsibility. That's what good daughters do." I said, "I already told you I can't pay for a whole wedding." They ignored that. Dad said, "It's the least you can do. Your brother needs you. We all need you." I tried to breathe slowly. "I help where I can. But I can't take on everything." That's when my mother's voice exploded. "It's your duty to pay for his wedding." She shouted like the words themselves were a hammer meant to break me. "You need to contribute to the family," she said again. "If you won't, disappear from here forever." Ethan watched me with that same smile. Not a kind smile. Not a nervous smile. A smile that said he expected this to go his way. He thought I would bend. Like always. But this time, something in me snapped. I stood up. Quiet. Cold. "You have 12 hours more to leave here." When I said those words, I wasn't talking about my own life. I wasn't talking about my place in the family. I was talking about something much bigger. Something they didn't know. Something they never imagined. And right as I turned to walk away, an unexpected sound came from the hallway. And then everything in the house changed. That sound marked the beginning of the storm they never saw coming. The sound came from the hallway like a sharp crack, something between a thud and a metallic snap. It sliced through the silence of the house and made everyone at the dinner table freeze. My father's hand, still gripping his fork, stopped midair. My mother's eyes flicked toward the doorway. Even Ethan's smile disappeared for the first time that night. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the air felt tight. The sound came again, soft this time but still clear. A low hum followed. "Mechanical whir," my mother finally whispered. What is that?" But I already knew. In fact, I had been waiting for it. I looked toward the hallway, took a slow breath and said, "You'll see." Their faces changed all at once. Confusion, fear, curiosity, suspicion. They stayed seated, but their bodies leaned forward, like the house itself was pulling them toward the sound. Another sharp click. Then a soft beep. My father stood up first. "Ava, what's going on in my house?" His house. Those words almost made me laugh. But I didn't respond. I let them sit in their confusion. I let them wonder. For once in their lives, they were the ones without answers. Ethan pushed his chair back and walked toward the hallway, glancing over his shoulder. "Did someone break in?" My mother gasped. "Robert, call someone." "No need," I said quietly. My father snapped at me. "Stop speaking in riddles. What is happening?" Before I could reply, Ethan stepped into the hallway, and stopped so fast his shoes squeaked on the tile floor. He stared ahead with wide eyes. "Mom, Dad, you need to see this." My parents rushed over, almost tripping over each other. And then they saw it too. A red light blinked near the floor. A small green screen lit up. A metal box, the size of a shoe, rested beside the wall outlet. My parents looked at it like it was a bomb. "What is that?" my mother whispered. I stepped closer, my voice calm. "It's a countdown." They all turned toward me at the same time. "A countdown for what?" my dad barked. I walked past them to the little device and crouched beside it. The green screen showed 11 hours 53 minutes. My mother grabbed my arm. "Ava, what did you do? Why is there a timer? Why is it counting down?" I gently removed her hand. "This shouldn't scare you. If you've been honest with me all these years, you have nothing to fear." My parents exchanged looks. Panicked, confused, lost. Ethan stepped back. "This isn't funny, Ava. I'm not joking, I said. You all have 11 hours and 53 minutes to leave. My father's face went red. Leave what? This house belongs to us. I stared straight at him. No, I said softly. It doesn't. Their mouths fell open. Silence swallowed the whole hallway. Only the ticking sound of the countdown filled the air. And then, before anyone could speak again, a loud knock slammed against the front door. Not a gentle knock. Not a visitor's knock. Heavy, commanding knock. My mother jumped. My father tensed. Ethan straightened his back. Another set of knocks. Louder, faster, firmer. My father snapped. Ava, who is that? I didn't answer. The knocking came again. Oom, oom, oom. As if whoever was outside had no intention of leaving. My father slowly walked toward the door, turned the handle and pulled it open. And standing outside, in the cold, quiet night, were 4 men in dark uniforms, holding black cases and wearing badges. My father stumbled back. What is this? Finally spoke. They're here for the final inspection. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Inspection for what? I looked at all of them. For the house. Their confusion deepened, but before they could ask another question, the tallest man stepped forward. Evening, he said. We're here for the midnight transfer. May we come in? My father blinked. Transfer. Transfer of what? The officer looked down at his clipboard. Property transfer, he replied. My mother made a soft choking sound. Whose property? The officer flipped a page. It says here the current homeowner is Miss Ava Thompson. Dead silence. And then, my father let out a trembling laugh. That's ridiculous. This is my house. The officer looked at me. Ma'am, may we begin? He nodded. Ethan turned pale. Ava, what's happening? My father grabbed my arm. Tell them the truth right now. I looked into his eyes. I am, I said. The officer stepped inside, followed by the others. They wheeled in their equipment. Scanners, folders, documents, sealed envelopes. My mother staggered backward until she hit the wall. This can't be real, she whispered. It can't. But it was. And it was only the beginning. Now let me walk you back so you understand how things reached this point. My parents never knew how hard I worked. They knew I had a good job, but they didn't know about the investments. The long nights. The second and third income streams. The savings I guarded like my life depended on it. They didn't know that the little house I bought at 27 wasn't my final goal. It was only step 1. By my early 30s, I realized something important. Being kind doesn't mean letting people walk on you. Helping family doesn't mean being used. Having a soft heart doesn't mean you're weak. So I made a decision. I would no longer let anyone, not even the people who raised me, treat me like I existed only to serve them. When my parents began demanding money for Ethan's wedding, I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I didn't complain. I simply smiled. And continued with the plan I had already put in motion months before. A plan that involved paperwork. A plan that involved signatures. A plan that involved the one thing my parents never thought I would do. Take control of the home they had taken for granted. You see, they believed the house belonged to them because they had lived in it for years. But they hadn't read the documents carefully. They hadn't checked the fine print. They hadn't remembered one small, important detail. A detail I'll explain later. But for now, what matters is this. By the time they demanded I pay for Ethan's wedding, the house was already in my name. Fully. Legally. Untouchably. And the countdown they saw. That wasn't for drama. That wasn't for fear. It was for a deadline. A deadline that meant, by tomorrow morning, my parents would legally no longer be allowed inside the house. Not as owners. Not as tenants. Not even as guests. They didn't know that. But they were about to. As the officers set up their equipment in the living room, the tension grew so thick it felt like the air was made of wet cement. My father's voice finally broke through. This is a mistake, he barked. A ridiculous mistake. This house has been in our family for years. My daughter cannot just take it. The officer turned calmly. Sir, according to the documents, she didn't take anything. She simply accepted what was given to her. My mother blinked at me. Given. Ava, what is he talking about? Before I could answer, the second officer opened a black case, removed a tablet, and tapped a few times. He turned the screen toward my parents. Their faces fell instantly. My mother staggered again. My father's mouth hung open. Ethan whispered, "No way, no way." My father pointed at the screen. This can't be real. But it was. And as the officers continued unpacking, preparing for the midnight transfer, ready to finalize everything, the tension in the room tightened until it felt ready to snap. My mother began shaking. My father's breathing sped up. Ethan stepped backward as if the floor had turned hot. And then, just when the panic reached its peak, a sudden loud crash came from upstairs. Something or someone had fallen. Everyone froze. The officers stopped moving. My mother grabbed my arm. My father whispered, "What was that?" And that sound, a crash, was the beginning of the next storm. The one they were absolutely not prepared for. The crash from upstairs shook the whole house. Everyone froze where they stood. My mother clutched my arm so tightly her nails dug into my skin. My father's eyes were wide, darting from the staircase to the officers. Ethan stepped back until his back hit the wall. One of the officers placed a hand on his holster, not drawing it, just ready. Another officer whispered to his partner, "Did she say anyone else was inside?" I shook my head slowly. "No," my mother whispered. "Ava, someone is upstairs. Someone is in this house." My father swallowed hard. "Ava, tell us the truth. Did you invite someone? Who is here?" But before I could speak, the sound came again. A dragging noise. Slow, heavy, and irregular. Like something was being pulled across the floorboards. Then footsteps, soft at first, then louder, coming toward the staircase. The officers exchanged glances. The tallest one spoke firmly. "Ma'am, stay behind us." My mother pulled me back, as if she finally realized she might need me as her shield instead of her wallet. Everyone watched the staircase. A shadow appeared first. Then movement. A figure stepped into view. My father gasped. My mother let out a short scream. Ethan's hands flew to his mouth. I simply stared. Because the person walking down the stairs wasn't a stranger. It was someone I had been expecting. Someone my family had forgotten. Someone they never thought would show up again. It was Mr. Halston, the family lawyer. Or as my parents used to call him years ago, the old man who talks too much about rules. But tonight, he didn't look like the calm, quiet lawyer I remembered. He looked exhausted, like he had been searching through old files all night. His suit was wrinkled. His hair was messy. And in his hand was a thick brown envelope. He reached the bottom of the stairs and exhaled. "Well," he said softly, "I see the countdown has begun." The officers nodded respectfully. My parents stared as if they had seen a ghost. My father finally found his voice. "Why are you here? How did you get inside?" Mr. Halston pointed at the front door. "Someone let me in earlier." My parents turned to me. Shrugged. "I told him to come." Ethan frowned. "But why? Why is he here now? What does this have to do with the timer?" "With the officers." Mr. Halston opened the brown envelope and tapped it twice. "This," he said, "has everything to do with it." My mother stepped forward. "Give me that." She snatched the envelope from his hand before he could react. She tore it open and pulled out the documents. Her eyes read quickly at first, then slowed, then stopped entirely. Her face went pale, so pale it looked like the color drained out of her body. My father hurried over and looked at the papers too. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Ethan whispered, "What is it?" Neither of them spoke. They just stared at the papers, hands shaking. I watched in silence. Then my mother finally whispered one word. No. But it wasn't the kind of no someone says when they disagree. It was the kind someone says when their whole world suddenly collapses beneath their feet. My father dropped into a chair. My mother grabbed the edge of the table like she might faint. Ethan snatched the papers next. His eyes scanned the page. His eyebrows shot upward. Then he looked at me slowly. You're joking. I shook my head. He dropped the papers as if they were burning his hands. What is all this? My mother said, voice trembling. Mr. Halston stepped forward. It is the official transfer paperwork your late grandmother signed before she passed away. She chose Ava to inherit the house. Not you, Sandra. Not you, Robert. And not Ethan. My mother's voice cracked. My own mother would never. She would, he cut in gently. She did. My father slammed his fist on the table. But this house was ours. We lived here. We paid for it. You paid rent, Mr. Halston interrupted. Not a mortgage. This house was never yours. My father froze. My mother sucked in a sharp breath. Ethan stared at me with shock turning into anger. I stayed quiet. My grandmother had been a gentle woman. Kind, patient, loving. She had watched my parents treat me differently for years, even when I didn't see it myself. She saw everything. And before she passed away, she made a decision. A decision my parents ignored because they thought she was too old to understand legal papers. They were wrong. Mr. Halston continued. For years, you were allowed to stay here out of courtesy. But now the grace period is over. And per her written instructions, the house must be fully transferred to Ava tonight by midnight. My mother shook her head violently. No, this is wrong. This is a trick. It is legal, he said firmly. Very legal. And the countdown device is simply the timer for midnight, when the officers will finalize the lock change and the property record update. My father stood up aggressively. We are not leaving our home. It's not your home, I said quietly. My mother pointed at me with shaking hands. You did this to punish us. I met her eyes. No. I did this to protect myself. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. My father's anger shifted into something darker. After all we did for you, you're throwing us out like trash? I stepped forward. What did you do for me? Yes. Please tell me. What have you ever done for me that didn't come with demands, or strings, or guilt? The silence that followed was louder than any scream. My father's jaw tightened. My mother looked away. Ethan stared at the floor. The officers continued preparing their equipment, marking the time. 11 hours, 12 minutes left. The house felt heavier than ever, like the walls themselves were angry. Mr. Halston closed his briefcase. I will be back before midnight, he said. As he walked out the door, one officer followed him, leaving 3 inside with us. My parents didn't move. Ethan didn't speak. And then, the lights flickered. Once. Then the whole house went dark. The power cut out completely. My mother screamed. My father jumped back. Ethan shouted, "What now?" The officers pulled out flashlights. I felt my own heartbeat quicken, not from fear but because I knew what this blackout meant. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't a broken fuse. It was step 2 of the transfer. And step 2 was always the hardest. Before I could warn them, a loud bang echoed from the basement. A bang 10 times louder than the one upstairs. A bang that shook the floor under our feet. The officers raised their lights. My parents huddled together. Ethan whispered, "Something's down there." But I already knew. I knew exactly what step 2 involved. And I also knew something. My family wasn't ready for what was about to come up from that basement. The bang from the basement made the whole house shudder. Even the walls seemed to shake. The officers raised their flashlights, scanning every corner. My mother grabbed my arm again, her nails digging into my skin. My father's face had gone pale, almost gray, and Ethan's mouth hung open in disbelief. I took a deep breath and said quietly, "Stay calm. Everything is under control." They all looked at me like I had lost my mind. But I wasn't scared. Not anymore. I had prepared for this night for months. Every detail had been planned. Every step had been considered. Every eventuality accounted for. I walked toward the basement stairs. The officers followed, flashlights cutting through the darkness. My parents stayed back, frozen in the living room. Ethan hesitated, but curiosity got the better of him, and he followed a few steps behind. The basement door creaked as I pushed it open. Cool draft hit us. Dust floated in the beam of our lights. Everything looked normal at first. Boxes stacked in corners. Old furniture covered with sheets. The usual clutter of a long-lived house. And then the floor vibrated slightly. A low hum filled the basement. The hum grew louder. I motioned for everyone to step back. The officers raised their flashlights higher. Then, suddenly, the floorboards in the middle of the basement shifted. A metal panel slid open with a hiss. From beneath the basement, a staircase revealed itself. A hidden staircase, steep and narrow, leading downward into darkness. My mother gasped. This is impossible," she whispered. My father stepped closer. Who built this?" I shook my head. "My grandmother," I said. "She planned for every scenario. Even this one." Ethan froze. "What do you mean, this one?" I looked at him, my face serious. "This is the real test. The final part of why this house is mine." The officers aimed their flashlights down the hidden stairs. "Ma'am," one said carefully, "what exactly are we looking for?" I smiled faintly. "Justice." My parents stared at me blankly. I stepped onto the first step. The hidden staircase was narrow, and the walls were cold concrete. The hum grew louder with every step. "Is it safe?" Ethan asked nervously. He nodded. "Yes, but only if you follow my instructions exactly." My parents muttered to each other, their fear thick and almost tangible. Ethan stayed close to me, gripping the railing tightly. The officers followed behind, keeping their flashlights steady. At the bottom of the stairs, a large steel door stood before us. The hum was loudest here, vibrating through the floor. I looked at the officers. "You may need to step back," I warned. They nodded, flashlights scanning the area. I pulled out a small key from my pocket, one I had kept hidden for months. It fit perfectly into the lock. The door swung open. Inside, the basement opened into a room I had never let anyone see. It was massive. High ceilings. Shelves lined with boxes, all neatly labeled. Old photographs, letters, journals. All documenting the Thompson family history. And in the center of the room, safe. A massive, old-fashioned safe. Its dial glinted in the flashlight beams. "This," I said softly, "is why this house is mine. And why Ethan doesn't get to touch a single thing in it." My parents stepped closer, as if drawn by curiosity despite their fear. "This is ridiculous," my father said. "This safe. It's just a safe," my mother exclaimed. I shook my head. "Not just a safe. It contains the instructions my grandmother left. Instructions about inheritance, about fairness, about family. Everything you ever ignored. It's all in there." Ethan's eyes widened. "Wait, you mean all of this time? Grandma set this up for you?" He nodded. "Yes. She knew what would happen if you demanded everything. She made sure I would be protected. She made sure fairness would be preserved." One of the officers asked, "Ma'am, are you saying this safe? It has legal documents?" "Yes," I said. "Wills, transfer documents, contracts. Everything that proves the house is mine, and that any claim by my parents or Ethan is null." My mother's voice trembled. You cheated us." I laughed softly. "No, I didn't cheat anyone. Followed the law. And I followed Grandma's wishes." My father's fists clenched. This is a nightmare. You can't do this. This is our house." I stepped closer, calm and steady. I already did. The officers watched silently as I opened the safe with a second key, revealing stacks of documents inside. Ethan took a hesitant step forward. So, if we try to stop you, nothing works. I shook my head. Exactly. The room was quiet except for the hum that now sounded like a heartbeat. The air was heavy. Then suddenly one of the officers spoke. "Ma'am, you might want to see this." He pointed toward the back wall of the room. I turned and my heart skipped. A hidden panel had opened. Inside, a stack of letters addressed to me. Handwritten in my grandmother's flowing script. I walked over, feeling a strange mix of sadness and strength. I picked up the first letter. "My dear Ava," it began. "You are the kindest, strongest person in our family. One day you will be tested. Not by strangers, not by the world, but by those who claim to love you. Remember, kindness is not weakness. Protect yourself, and protect what is yours." I felt tears prick my eyes. I hadn't expected to feel this, not in the midst of such chaos. I handed the letters to Ethan. "Read them," I said. He hesitated, then opened one. His face went pale. He read silently, then dropped it. I didn't know," he whispered. My parents were silent. No words came out. Only fear and shame. I smiled faintly. "You have one last chance. Leave this house. Respect me. Respect the wishes of Grandma. Or, you will be gone by midnight." The countdown on the device in the living room ticked lower. 7 hours 45 minutes. And just when the tension seemed to ease slightly, the lights flickered violently, then exploded in a shower of sparks. The safe door slammed shut on its own, the hum turned into a deafening roar, and the entire basement shook. The officers shouted. My parents screamed. Ethan froze. I held my ground, 'cause I knew this was the final test, and only those who respected the rules of kindness and fairness would survive it. The basement shook violently, the hum now a roar that pressed against my ears. Sparks flew from the broken lights. The officers shouted, trying to keep control. My parents screamed and clutched each other like children. Ethan's face was white as a ghost. But I stood firm. I had prepared for this. Every step, every detail, every eventuality. I took a deep breath and said, "Everyone stay calm. Do exactly as I say, and no one gets hurt." The officers nodded. My parents looked at me as if I were a stranger. Ethan's jaw was tight. I moved toward the safe. Its steel door had slammed shut in the chaos, but I knew exactly how to open it. I had spent nights practicing, memorizing the exact steps. Click, turn through 3. The door swung open. Inside were all the documents my grandmother had prepared. Wills, property transfers, and letters explaining her wishes. I held them up for everyone to see. "This is why the house is mine. And this is why you all need to respect my boundaries," I said calmly. My mother's hand shook. "Ava, please. We didn't know, we didn't mean." I cut her off gently. "I know you didn't mean well. But intentions aren't enough. Actions matter. And your actions showed me who you really are." My father's face turned red. You're throwing us out. Your own parents." He nodded. "By midnight the law will back me. You will have 12 hours to leave peacefully. After that, it won't be negotiable." Ethan's face fell. "So, all this time you were planning this?" "Yes," I said. "Not to punish you. Not out of anger. But to protect myself. To protect what is rightfully mine. And to honor Grandma's wishes." The officers moved to finalize the transfer, updating the legal records. My parents tried to argue, but every document I had, every letter from my grandmother, every legal proof, nullified their claims. And then, something unexpected happened. Ethan, who had been quiet all this time, stepped forward slowly. He looked at me with a mixture of shame and realization. I didn't understand," he whispered. "You were always the one sacrificing. always doing everything for everyone else. And he shook his head. We never appreciated it. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was recognition. My mother's lips trembled. Ava. I never thought. I treated you unfairly. He nodded. It's true. And it's okay. You can start making amends. But first leave. All of you. For now. Take the time to reflect. The officers finished their work. The countdown ticked down silently in the living room. Midnight. The house was officially mine. Every lock, every key, every record. Legal, undeniable, final. My parents stared at me. Ethan's shoulders slumped. I walked past them to the stairs, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. I stopped at the top. You have 12 hours more to leave here, I said quietly, echoing the words from that first night. This time there was no shouting, no threats, no anger, only silence. They turned, finally understanding the power of boundaries, the strength of kindness mixed with firmness, the importance of respect. And as they left the house that night, carrying nothing but their pride, I closed the door behind them. The house was quiet again. The hum stopped. The lights worked. I looked around the living room. Everything felt peaceful. And for the first time in my life I felt completely free. I sat down at the dining table where the argument had started. The plates were still there. The memories were still there. But this time the power was mine. I picked up one of my grandmother's letters. I read it again. Kindness is not weakness. Protect yourself, and protect what is yours. Tears filled my eyes. Not of anger, not of sadness, but of understanding. I had learned a lesson my parents never would. Being kind doesn't mean letting anyone hurt you. Being empathetic doesn't mean giving away your life. Standing firm doesn't make you cruel, it makes you strong. That night, I lit a candle in the living room. Not because anyone else would see it. Not because I needed approval. But because I had earned the right to feel safe. To feel respected. To feel at home. And as the candle flickered softly, I smiled. My parents' chapter in my life had ended. And a new one, mine, was just beginning. I had survived the storm. I had protected what was mine. And I had done it with kindness, courage, and clarity. For the first time I truly understood. Love yourself enough to say no. Love yourself enough to take a stand. Love yourself enough to walk forward. While the past stays behind. And that finally was freedom.